I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for your support.
Hey y'all, it's Kate from the Literary Apothecary and welcome back to my channel.
Hey y'all, Editing Kate here. So as I was preparing for next week's videos, I realized that maybe I should just put the top 8, top 4, and top 2, or quarterfinals, semifinals, and final rounds of the best books of 2022, the battle of the books of 2022, all together on one video instead of a lot of really short videos where I don't have a lot to say in each one of the individual videos. So that's what you've got here. So you're going to notice different changes, different me saying like this is just this is just this, because some of it is too complicated or I don't have the patience to edit it out. But I just wanted to throw this video in there at the beginning so you know what to expect for real.
Today is the quarterfinals for the best reads of 2022, my favorite reads of 2022. We're down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, just 8 books left. These next 3 rounds, the last 3 rounds are going to be so hard because these are some of my favorite books, and to narrow it down to just one is going to be near impossible, but I'm going to do it for you all. We'll see who comes out on top. The top 8 books going up against each other. Let's see who comes out for the semifinals. Our first matchup is Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee up against A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. Wow. This one, y'all know my girl Fonda Lee. I gotta give this one to Jade Legacy because that book was just wow. So that says so long farewell to A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. This was a 5-star read for me. I absolutely loved it and I can't wait to read the rest of the series. This is like Jane Austen but with dragons. Historical fiction with dragons. So unique. One of the most unique books I read last year with a great narrative voice. I listened to the audiobook and the narrator really sold this book for me. Awesome audiobook, great narrative voice in the audiobook, but I don't know, as much as I loved it, it can't beat Jade Legacy because that was just an amazing finale to that series. So I loved A Natural History of Dragons, but that is the end of the road for that. Our next matchup is Guns of the Dawn by Adrian Tchaikovsky up against Waking Ursa Minor by Helen Reig Peterson. Wow. This is so hard. I have no idea what I wanted. Okay, I'm gonna go with Waking Ursa Minor here and give it to my girl Helen. But this one might be the hardest decision out of all of these because I loved Guns of the Dawn so much. This had excellent, beautiful prose. It felt like Jane Austen Regency meets military fantasy, historical fiction-esque. Wow, this book was so good. I wanna reread it, but I don't know, just something about Waking Ursa Minor just sticks in my head. So I guess this is the end of the road for Guns of the Dawn. That even surprised myself, I think. Next up, we have Middle Game by Seanan McGuire versus House of Salt and Sorrows by Aaron A. Craig. I loved both of these books, but this one might be the easiest pick in this round for me. This one is going to go to Middle Game by Seanan McGuire and The End of the Road to House of Salt and Sorrows by Aaron A. Craig. This was a exciting fantasy horror YA with so many twists and turns. I never knew where it was going to go. I absolutely loved everything about this book, but it doesn't beat Middle Game because that book was just incredible. So End of the Road for House of Salt and Sorrows. And our last matchup of this round is Augustus by John Williams up against The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. I still have no idea if I'm saying the author's name right or not, but I've been saying it that way this entire time, so we're going to continue it. This one I have to give to Augustus by John Williams, but The Space Between Worlds was absolutely stunning. I still think about this book to this day, and I recommend it anytime anyone is looking for a different, unique science fiction book. This had top-notch world upon world building. It was an interdimensional world jumping, I forget that term, world jumping book where we had different worlds within each other, and it was just so well done. One of my favorite books of last year, and a patron picked by Lena at Lauren Lullabies. Lena, thank you so much for picking this for me. It was so fantastic. So that's it for the quarterfinal rounds. We've got our top 4 books for the semifinal rounds, and that one is going to be so hard to narrow down. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but tune in next week for our semifinals and our final rounds of the best reads of 2022, my favorite reads of 2022. Y'all, here I've got to say thank you to Michael Nip for doing this last year or the year before that, and giving me this idea, because even though this is incredibly hard to do, it's so much fun to see which books go up against which books, and I hope you guys are loving this because it's so hard to do, but so much fun. So now I've decided to do the quarterfinals, or the semifinals and the finals along with the quarterfinals, and just round this out for January to finish up. So let's move on with our top 4 books. We have Augustus by John Williams up against Jade Legacy, and once I knew what the shakedown was going to be of the top 4, my brain kind of already started thinking about these, so these reactions might not be as in the moment as the others. When I saw that these 2 books were going to go up against each other, yes, this is such a hard pick, but I think what my brain has decided on, this is going to surprise a lot of people. But I think I'm going to give this round to Augustus by John Williams. Jade Legacy was amazing. It was the best finale to that series that could have ever happened. It was incredible. Great character development, plot development. Every single one of these circles that started in book 1, Jade City, came around to the end. They were all closed off. There was no loose ends at all in this. I absolutely loved this. This was obviously made it to the top 4, one of my favorite books of last year. I really, really, really enjoyed this book so much. But Augustus, there's just something special about that book that just eked out Jade Legacy. I know Alan will be excited about that. Others will be very surprised. But in a minute, I'll talk more about Augustus and tell y'all just what was special about that. And then our other matchup for the top 4, the semifinals, is Waking Ursa Minor by Helen Reich Peterson up against Middle Game by Shauna McGuire. Yet another really, really difficult matchup. I think for me, this one is going to go to Middle Game by Shauna McGuire, and say Waking Ursa Minor was absolutely amazing, especially for Helen's debut novel. It sucked me in immediately from chapter 1. The chapters, I felt sympathy for every single one of these chapter characters, and I can't wait for more, but it doesn't beat Middle Game for me. So that's the end of the road to Waking Ursa Minor, but I can't wait for book 2. So that leaves us with our top 2 books of 2022, our final round. Augustus by John Williams up against Middle Game by Shauna McGuire. So I've tried not to talk too much about the books that moved on to the next round. Here I'm going to talk about both books since this is the final round. Augustus by John Williams is a historical fiction piece written about the Roman Emperor Augustus, who was the nephew and successor of Julius Caesar. It starts off at the very beginning, this isn't spoiler, it starts off at the very beginning with the assassination of Julius Caesar, and Augustus has to become Emperor of Rome then. It had absolutely amazing prose, and this is the only book from last year that I reread instantly. I first listened to the audiobook of this book, and it sucked me in immediately. It kept my attention through the whole entire book, and it made me feel things that audiobooks don't always make me feel emotions for. But then I knew that the prose was so incredible, I had to read it in its physical form to get those quotes written down. Middle Game by Shauna McGuire was unlike anything I've ever read before. It's incredibly well written, and the two main characters, I think Raj and Dodge, pulled at my heartstrings in a way that no other characters had up until then. Both of these books were incredibly influential reading. They were both written so well in such unique ways. So Augustus was written in the epistolary format from letters and journals and whatnot that John Williams made up. I had to remind myself constantly while reading Augustus that this was fictional. This was historical fiction and not just historical, because it was written in such a convincing way that it felt like it was straight history. Middle Game was such a unique idea that we have these characters that aren't human, aren't gods yet. They're kind of the yin and the yang to each other. One lives off of language and words, and the other one lives off of math and logic, and it was just such a unique way of writing this story that I really want to read book 2. Haven't gotten to it yet, but sometime this year, hopefully. But I think I loved both of these books so much. I think this one I have to give to Augustus, because that was the only book that I reread almost instantly, and even after I reread it, I still wanted to reread it. I think about that book almost every day. Something about the way that John Williams wrote that book just keeps coming back to me, and I want to reread it all the time. I have to force myself not to reread it because I have so many other books to read. So that concludes my Battle of the Books from 2022. So many people I think are going to be surprised, but my top book of 2022 is Augustus by John Williams. If you haven't read Augustus or any of these books yet, go and pick them up now, especially my top 4 or my top 8 books. So many amazing books I read in 2022. Let me know in the comments below, what were you surprised with the most in this Battle of the Books? What was your top favorite book from 2022? I really want to just say thank you guys all for coming on this journey with me. These are so fun and so hard to do. I love doing my top books in this format because I would never have guessed. I loved Middle Game a lot, but I would never have guessed that it made it to the top 2 books of 2022, and that's why I love doing it in this format, because you see these books go up against each other and it determines what books come out on top, and it's so exciting to see. So thank you guys for watching and sticking with me, and as always, my Patreon and my Discord information will be in the description below. Keep reading, and I love y'all to the moon and back. Bye.